So you guys are in the home inspection business, are pretty busy right now.
Yes.
And a lot of people need stuff done like yesterday to move on with the contract that they're competing with 25 other people on the same house. When you go through and you're looking at houses, what are some of the most common things you're finding?
Some of the most common issues are actually some of the easier ones to address. Any home with a crawl space or an attic, more often than not, I'll find some evidence of rodent infestation, whether rats or squirrels. With homes, not all systems last forever, so things like furnaces need to be serviced and cleaned, or water heaters need to be replaced. On older homes, it's not uncommon to find galvanized plumbing or knob and tube wiring.
Mm-hmm. And so when you start seeing these items, I guess there's a smorgasbord of costs to these.
Correct.
And so I guess people really want to know from an inspector, should I buy this house or should I not? It's kind of the big questions, the end-all, be-all, all-encompassing question people want answered.
Right, absolutely. And I think the best way to approach that question is first for the buyer to understand what their threshold is for financial, emotional, or time limitations. If they're buying a home that's at the high end of what their financial abilities are, then probably a home with fewer issues that can't be negotiated to be fixed by the seller. Maybe a home that's more ready to move in without a lot of repairs. Maybe that's the best fit for them. Oftentimes, though, investors are looking for a project that they can do work to and gain some sweat equity from. Mm-hmm. So I think first and foremost, a buyer needs to walk in with a clear picture in their mind of where their limitations lie. What's the ceiling for what they're able to afford?
Do you think most people walk in with that clear understanding?
I think initially they do, and then they find the perfect home in the right neighborhood, and emotions start to kick in, and the excitement of buying the home.
I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
I
that's no
can
big
do
deal.
that.
Or,
It's just a roof.
My brother-in-law is an electrician. He lives in Denver. He'll come out and make those repairs for me. So, yeah, people start to move that line, if you will, based on possible emotional reactions. So what I would suggest to people is come in knowing what those limitations are, what their threshold for acceptance is. And then as we go through the inspection, I can help people. I'll give them information about galvanized plumbing. It does have a limitation to its lifespan, and so expect to replace it, and the price could be within this range. Of course, get an estimate by a licensed and bonded plumber, but to take that inspection report and use that information as a way to calculate what are the costs of repair or the cost of updating that's going to go into that house, how that's going to affect their bottom line.
Mm-hmm. And I guess knowing how much, like you said, knowing the time, money, and wherewithal in order to accomplish some of these things really does have to be on the forefront. But I guess it's the tough part for people out there today is there's just not a lot of houses for sale, and at some point a house is better than no house. It's just something that people have to manage expectations on.
Absolutely, and I don't know, any house is better than no house. There's those money pits that you can walk into, and things that can really trip somebody up are foundation issues. They can be one of the more expensive fixes, and so those are something to really look towards. Homes that have pervasive water issues. Say there's a high water table on that property lot, and there's a constant infiltration of water down into a basement or crawl space. Those can sometimes be a bit more complicated to remedy as well. Or inside of an attic space, if there's been structural damage to some of the framing for the roofing structure, that can be one of the more expensive fixes to handle as well. I've never seen anything on a house that couldn't be fixed. It's just who has the amount of money and time in order to invest into those repairs. And so if any house is better than no house, I don't know if I agree with that. I think that there are those money pits out there that can be more trouble than they're worth for your average buyer.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. So you get into these real expensive ones that you're discussing: foundation failures, rotted structural framing in the roof. I mean, these are big items. Then there are items that maybe are more scary than they are, I guess, financially or structurally, detrimental to the home or to somebody's pocketbook.
Exactly. Going back to the rodents, that's a really common defect that I find. And I would say more often than not, there is some evidence of them. Possibly 3 out of 5, maybe even 4 out of 5 homes will have some signs of that.
And there are a lot more rats out there than people think.
They are pervasive. They are ubiquitous with people. Wherever we are, they're at. And there's things that you can do around your property to prevent them from getting into your home. Keep the vegetation away from the house. The landscaping is not closed for your home. You don't have to put it up against the side of the house. So
is that where the rats
they
come?
do. You create this nice little hidden den for them, and then they start peeking around inside of the screens into your crawl space, and they see that warm, yummy insulation inside of there, and they'll find their way in. They'll chew their way in. So keeping the vegetation off of a home, or keeping the tree branches trimmed off of the electrical service. The electrical service into a house, I have seen rats crawl around on that wire, and it's a I-5 or a 405 right into your home. So keeping trees trimmed away from those electrical services are great ways to prevent those little critters from coming into your house. Plus, they don't pay rent, so you don't
it's
want
really
them
not worth it.
No,
they're kind of nasty. Most people aren't really big fans of rats.
No,
except for like first graders, right? And they bring them home. I remember like in first grade, right? The teacher gives you the rat to take home for a day, and.
My mom was smart. She made up an allergy to rodents. She said, I'm allergic to small animals.
Please don't bring your school rats into my house. Kristine Messick joins us. Are there other easy fixes that really scare people away?
I think knob and tube is, in older homes, knob and tube is probably the number one concern that I get from clients. Homeowner insurance companies do a great job of prepping homeowners to the potential defects or electrical safety issues that can happen with knob and tube wiring, almost to the point of scaring people. So all older homes have knob and tube wiring if they were built prior to the early 1950s. That's probably what was in the home originally. And those wiring systems, sure, they don't last forever, but they're not necessarily bad. It's if the cloth sheathing on the wires gets deteriorated or sloughs off, then that's a concern. You don't want those bare wires exposed. Or if people have prior well-intentioned homeowners have gone and tapped into that knob and tube wiring to try to run newer electrical wiring, that's of concern. So the wiring itself isn't necessarily bad, but it's what people do to it.
Well, and I think you say knob and tube. I mean, it's just like one of those things that people hear. And you don't really understand what it is. So
exactly. And there are some homeowner insurance companies out there who won't insure knob and tube wiring, but there are others that do. So, it's good to shop around if that is something that's going to create a potential roadblock for a homeowner's insurance policy.
And now, what about water? Because you talked about the invasiveness of water, but of course, most people like hot showers, things of that nature. And I know that, when an inspector goes in, you turn on all the faucets.
Yep.
Seeing how the water pressure is. Are there certain aspects of water coming into the home that can be fixed easily that maybe aren't as scary as others?
Galvanized metal is a type of plumbing pipe that was used in older homes as well. And it rusts from the inside, much like arterial sclerosis clogs the arteries and veins around your heart. And that rust inside of the pipe restricts the amount of flow through the water. And when that happens, you can't run the dishwasher and take a hot shower at the same time. So that's the time when that plumbing needs to be replaced. And I think that can scare some people. But usually it's a very easy fix for a plumber to do, especially if a basement's unfinished. It can be done within a day or two. And I think it's surprising for people when they find out it's not cheap. I'm not going to give the impression that it is cheap, but it is a very simple and as far as home updates go, it's not one of the more expensive ones. So
yeah, and you think to replumb a house. I mean, I've never replumbed a house, but in my mind, it is ripping out every wall and every piece of everything.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be that. The pipes, copper is a type of material that's used quite prevalently, but more often than not now, especially in new construction, I'm seeing plastic pipes, like PEX materials that can be, that bends and it moves, and so you can install it a lot easier and a lot quicker than something that's hard and rigid like a copper tubing. So that's something that has really reduced down the cost and the time involved with replumbing homes.
Yeah, well, certainly when people are out looking at houses and trying to find reasons to get into them, knowing what what the scarier items are versus the costly items, I think can be a huge advantage.